Good morning, children. Welcome to part 3 of federalism. Previously, in part 2, we have covered reorganization and creation of states, some questions, the language policy with examples on linguistic states, center-state relations. If you remember, we discussed on the migrant crisis and how power sharing is practiced in India. So today we will be covering decentralization in India, in the urban centers, the structure of the local self-government, in the rural centers, the third tier of the government in India, amendment in the constitution, the rural government as well as the urban government. The learning outcomes will be that you will be able to understand the process of decentralization in India. At the end of today's unit, you will be able to understand the process of decentralization in the urban centers. You will be able to understand the process of decentralization in the rural areas. You will be able to comprehend the Amendment Act, and you will be able to identify the administrative head of the rural and urban local self-governments. Coming to decentralization in India, as we realize, federalism is dividing the powers between the center and the state. So when we take some powers from the central government and the state government and give them to a third tier of the government, it is called local self-government. This entire process is called decentralization. The process of taking some powers from the center and the state and giving them to the local self-government. This is called decentralization. It's all about the third level or the third tier of the government, the local self-government or the Panchayat Raj system. Let us first deal with decentralization in urban areas. Now in urban areas also we have two categories, the towns and the big cities. The towns have municipalities with the municipal chairperson as the head. The big cities have municipal corporations with mayor as the head. So municipalities, as we understand, are set up in towns controlled by elected bodies consisting of people's representatives. Municipal chairperson is the political head of the municipality. Municipal corporations are set up in big cities controlled by elected bodies consisting of people's representatives. Mayor is the head of the municipal corporation. You can note down these differences. I'll leave it on for a few seconds. It could be a compare and contrast question for all you know. Coming to the rural local government, it is popularly known as the Panchayati Raj system. It is a council consisting of several ward members, often called Panch, and a president or Sarpanch. It is the decision-making body for the entire village. A few Gram Panchayats are grouped together to form what is usually called a Panchayat Samiti or a block mandal. And all the Panchayat Samitis are mandals together in a district constitute the Zilla Parishad or the District Parishad. So let us look at the structure of the rural local self-government in a graphic organizer or in a nutshell. You have the lowest body, the Gram Sabha, which goes up to the Gram Panchayat or the village Panchayat, which goes further up to the Taluka, the block or the Mandal Panchayat, and which goes higher up to the Zilla Panchayat or the Zilla Parishad. So if you notice the graphic, it's coming down. You start at the top order, Zilla Parishad, and go down to the Gram Sabha. Let's talk about the Gram Sabha. I've tried to get you an image of the Gram Sabha and the Gram Panchayat here. Every adult member of a village is a member of the Gram Sabha. I think in class 6 or 7 you learn about it, but let's talk about it. The Gram Sabha has to meet at least twice or thrice in a year, and it serves two very important functions. One, it approves the annual budget of the village panchayat, and two, it reviews the performance of the village panchayat. So two very, very important functions performed by the Gram Sabha. Now the village panchayat or the Gram Panchayat is an elected body at the lowest level of the Panchayati Raj system. Every village or a cluster or a group of a few villages has one Gram Panchayat. Villages are divided into wards for the purpose of elections. Political parties are not allowed to contest in these elections. Everyone is an independent candidate. The head of the Gram Panchayat is called the president or the sarpanch. Normally they call him sarpanch in the villages because it's the local name. The taluka, the block or the mandal panchayat is when a few villages are grouped together to form this level of the government. Usually there would be one for one taluk. Political parties can contest elections to this level. Apart from this, the elected representatives, the local MLA is a member to it. So now there are some points which are different from the previous one. At any point in time that you want to go back to what I have spoken earlier, pause the video, rewind it, go back and rerun it. The Zilla Panchayat or the Zilla Parishad. Usually there would be one Zilla Panchayat for a district. Once again, political parties can contest elections to this level. It is the most powerful government in the hierarchy. I told you we go top down in the graphic organizer. So Zilla Parishad was at the top. Most developmental activities happen through this government. Apart from elected representatives, the MLAs of the district and the local MP can participate in the proceedings. Why is it necessary? Point 1. India is a very, very big country. So a two-tier system is not sufficient. Look at the condition. On the right you have the entire Europe, and on the left you have just one state of UP. Some states in India are bigger than some European countries. For example, Uttar Pradesh is bigger than Russia in terms of population. One state government for a population of 17 crores is not sufficient. It's difficult. It connects to your migrant crisis today. Where, from which parts of the country are all the migrants going? to which part of the country are they going. So if they have decided they are going back to a particular state, that means what would be the population of that state in terms of the people living there and adding on to the migrants who are now returning back to their own states. And would one government or a two-tier government be sufficient to run such a big population? So these are just thought-provoking questions for you to connect and think about the consequences. Now Maharashtra is as big as Germany in terms of population. Look at the size. Look at number 3. These states are internally very diverse. Diverse population has diverse needs, diverse goals. Hence the need for government below the state government. Look at Karnataka that I have shown you in the example. You can actually divide it into 4 states. The coastal region and the other 3 regions. Karnataka can be actually divided into 4. So large number of problems and issues are best settled at the local level. Local people know the solution and know where to spend the money. Somebody sitting in Delhi or in Lucknow or in Haryana or in Gujarat, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh cannot come to Mumbai and fill your potholes. But somebody controlling Mumbai, somebody having a local government in Mumbai knows the problems of a Mumbaikar. So local people know how to manage things, resources, etc. more efficiently. At number 6, it ensures better participation of the people in the decision-making process. So just as we have WhatsApp groups, it becomes our Gram Panchayat or our municipality. But if you look at the actual situation in the villages, everybody meets below a banyan tree or below some tree, or they have some kind of a sitting place and a meeting place. And they participate. It also strengthens Indian democracy. But then there is this one question that comes to our mind. Why was decentralization not effective before 1992? The answer is simple. Municipalities and panchayats were then under the direct control of the state government, and elections to these local bodies were not held regularly. Local governments did not have any power or resources of their own. So then, what steps were taken to strengthen the local self-government? Number 1, the Constitution was amended in 1992 to make the third tier or the third level of the government more powerful. Now it is mandatory, compulsory to hold regular elections to the local government bodies. Number 3, seats are reserved for the SCs, STs and OBCs. At least 1/3 of the seats are reserved for women. In Karnataka alone and in some other states, reservation for women is 50%. The State Election Commission has been created to hold elections to these local bodies. The state is required to share some power and resources with local bodies. So a little fact for you, do you know there are more than 2,60,000 gram panchayats in India? As per the 2016 budget of the Government of India, every gram panchayat would get a fund of rupees 75 lakhs from the central government every year to take up a developmental activity. So when we are talking about development in economics, you can connect it to this point over here. I'm giving you a fact in politics, I'm teaching you development in economics, you are learning the resources in geography. Let's do the positives of decentralization. It is the largest experiment of power sharing in the world. There are 36 lakh elected representatives. This number is bigger than the population of some countries. The constitutional status given to these local governments has helped to deepen democracy in our country. Indian democracy has become more meaningful. Reservation for women, SCs, STs, OBCs has made Indian democracy more inclusive and more participatory. More inclusive because now we have included women, SC, ST, OBC, and more participatory because women are one community whose voice is never heard. Last year in democratic politics, you would have seen that India was one of the initial countries to give voting rights to women right from the beginning. Other countries had to run voting right movements for women. So we are in a democracy who sets a role model. However, our system has its own challenges. The challenges of decentralization include that elections are held regularly and enthusiastically, but the Gram Sabhas very seldom meet. They are mandatorily required to meet at least twice or thrice in a year. But do they meet more than that? How often do they meet? Most state governments have not transferred significant powers to the local self-government. And resource sharing, which is not very satisfactory right now, could be made more satisfactory. So we have covered it this way: Panchayati Raj, or the local self-government at the rural level. We have the village level, the block level, and the district level. Village level, we spoke about the Gram Panchayat, formed by the Gram Sabha, headed by the Sarpanch. Block level, the Panchayat Samiti, SAMITI, elected by the Panchayat members, headed by the Block Development Officer, or the BDO. At the district, you have the Zilla Parishad, formed by elected members and have members of the Lok Sabha and MLAs of the district, headed by the Zilla Chairperson. A quick recap of the third tier of the government. When power is taken away from the center and the state governments and given to the local government, it is called decentralization, or the local self-government, or the third tier of government. Federal power sharing in India needs another tier of government below that of the state government, and it is called as the local government. The local government is the third tier of the government, which is based on decentralization of power. The two examples given to you: urban government, municipality; rural government, Panchayati Raj. Now we have some assignment for the notebook. Bring out the constitutional amendments of 1992 towards decentralization. Any 5 points for 5 marks. So it should be about 120 words. I would like you to copy the questions It's an assignment for your notebook. In case if you do not have your notebook, use foolscape paper. You can do your assignment on foolscape paper and later stick it in the notebook. But as far as my memory goes, and it's very sharp, you've written your notes in your notebook. Bring out the constitutional amendments of 1992 towards decentralization. Any 5 points for 5 marks. Second question. There is an unequal division of power between the center and the states in India. Support the statement. At number 3. There is an unequal division of power among the states themselves. There is an unequal division of power among the states themselves. Number 4. Why is India often called a quasi-federal country? Now this word you're going to look up in your textbook. Why is India often called a quasi-federal country? Look up in the textbook. Number 5. Mention 4 reasons as to why federalism has succeeded in India. Mention 4 reasons why federalism has succeeded in India. Number 6. Explain how the center-state relations affect federal practice in India. Explain how center-state relations affect federal practice in India. Now, before I sign off for today, I have left you with a link on YouTube and you're going to watch that. It's a very, very short video talking about decentralization. The entire concept of decentralization will be hammered into your heads. It will help you remember and register and revise before you write the answers in your notebook. So until we meet again for another class, goodbye. See you. Thank you.